Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be taking a look at the new PTR patch notes that just happened recently. So if you guys don't know what's happening in Season 23 or patch 2.7, I did go over a video on everything with that. Basically, there's a new follower rework, and there's some new items added into the game, and there's completely new revamped, reworked sets. However, we're just here to go over the newest updates, but if you guys do want to be up to date on the previous stuff, I will also pin a video down below, as I recommend you guys to watch that first so you can see everything that's in here, as I'm just going to be covering the new updates that recently came out for the PTR, aka for potentially Season 23 over here. But keep in mind, everything is of course still subject to change. I'm here to just basically highlight and tell you guys my thoughts and kind of the explanation behind some of the stuff. So first off, in terms of the follower updates, the different abilities will now display a debuff icon while they are on cooldown. This is basically the cheat death, and there's also a change with the cheat death over here where it does change the priority versus the player's cheat death skills. So it's going to be, depending on what class you're playing, this could be better or worse, but for the most part, it's just nice to be able to see when those things are going to be activated, or I guess on cooldown. And then on top of that, they made it so the relic that reduced the cooldown by 50% now affects certain other cheat death abilities for the followers. Now, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day for most players, because you do have to run the item that makes it so the follower just doesn't die. So again, realistically, it doesn't matter for most players, I would say. And then on top of that, there's a change with the vanish skill rework. So it makes it so instead of preventing your death, it allows you to escape your death. So I'm guessing you just have to move. Not really too big of a deal overall with the follower changes. I would really like to see them add more items in the emanate category in order for us to be able to potentially have more build diversity and just open up the doors to more potentials here, because at the end of the day, it's just like another Kanai's cube slot with the emanate ability. But moving on to things that actually do matter, and the gameplay that you guys are seeing in the background right here is the new Necromancer that had the new Rathma change that's absolutely obliterated. It doesn't even like function anymore. So this is the last gameplay that you guys will ever be able to see of this, and it's so cool. It was an amazing build. I mean, it did GR 150s, and it would be immune to damage pretty much the entire time. It was the best Necro build for sure, but unfortunately, it is getting absolutely obliterated to the point where I don't know if people even want to try it out anymore. But anyways, let's go over the changes. So Rathma Shield passive now has a 60-second cooldown. In the gameplay that you guys are seeing, it's pretty much up 100% of the time. So rip that. And on top of that, there's some item changes. So with the 2-piece Bones of Rathma, instead of your minions reducing the cooldown of Army of the Dead by 1 second, it is now 0.25, so that's a huge nerf to that. Basically unable to be able to upkeep spamming the Army of the Dead, and that would also grant you the Rathma Shield, so that already is nerfed too. So it's a huge nerf in that department. And then on top of that, with the 6-piece bonus, each active minion increases the damage of Army of the Dead and Bone Spirit by, instead of being 1,000, now it's 500, and now it also has a maximum of 8,500. So now, not only do you have half the damage, but it also has a capped number. So that's unfortunate for anyone that wanted to play that build, because it's just completely destroyed. And then on top of that, because they decided to nerf Bone Spirit, this is more for people that would really min-max in the higher greater rifts. There's an item, the Defiler Pants. What it would do is make it so you would activate Bone Spirit from super far away, and it would just start increasing in the damage department, and then it would just do massive amounts of damage to, let's say, a Rift Guardian. They're changing that so it has a maximum of 5 seconds, which still is a huge amount of damage, but again, when you cap anything, the player base probably won't be interested in trying out that anymore, so rip that idea as well. That's actually a completely different build that people would try out for like a Rift Guardian killer. But on top of that, the newer item, the Bonds of Selena, is taking a huge nerf. So it made it so Army of the Dead and Bone Spirit dealt 304% increased damage. Now instead of that, and on top of that, Bone Spirit did get additional 2% increased damage for 5 seconds each time Army of the Dead hits an enemy. That's no longer how it works. This is basically a completely different item now. Bone Spirit instead now deals 300 to 400% increased damage and deals an additional 2% increased damage for 10 seconds each time Army of the Dead hits an enemy, maximum of 500 stacks. So we'll play around with this to see if it makes it a little bit more viable, as the Bones of Rathma was supposed to be kind of a Army of the Dead and Bone Spirit build, but no one used Bone Spirit. But even with these changes, you've essentially nerfed the uptime that we'd be able to keep on spamming Army of the Dead, which technically increases the damage of our Bone Spirit. So it's going to be really, really rough to play this. Hopefully they will kind of buff this up, because I feel like this nerf was just too much. I mean, it's just too many things got hit on top of, like, you know, having a cap. It's just really unfortunate, but it was definitely one of the strongest builds in the game. Now, moving on to Wizard over here. So I want to give you guys some Wizard gameplay so you guys can kind of get an idea. However, we are no longer going to be using the Talrasha 6-piece with the 4-piece FireBird. So now we are actually going to completely change it up just to be a FireBird's build. As before, the main attraction was you would equip the 6-piece of Talrasha, get all of the bonuses, and then on top of that, with the old FireBird Finery, this is Season 23's early PTR, not like old as in Season 22, but this was on the PTR, where we gained 80% damage reduction and then 4,000% increased damage. That's what we'd originally do. Now you have to wear the 6-piece to get that 4,000 damage bonus. But let's go over the newer changes. So previously, before, it would have like an ignite damage from Disintegrate, and it would deal 3,000% weapon damage until the enemy died. Now it's 7,500. Is this going to make a huge difference? Pretty much no. The changes really come down to the 6-piece change, but this technically is a little bit buff over here. But now going on to the 4-piece bonus. So remember, we used to gain 80% damage reduction and 4,000% increased damage, but it's changed now. So now casting Disintegrate adds a combustion stack that reduces the cooldown of teleport by 1 second per stack, but this stacks up to 100 times. Previously, it only stacked up to 50 with a 2%. It's basically the same at the end of the day for the min-maxing and the teleport. But now we also gain 80% damage reduction while maintaining combustion stacks, versus before what would happen is that you had to have an enemy ignited to get that 80% damage reduction. So this would be considered pretty much a buff overall, because it's going to be more upkept because you're able to keep those combustion stacks a lot easier than igniting an enemy. So I'd say that's a nice change. Now with the 6-piece bonus here, now this is where the 4-piece bonus got moved to the 6-piece. We deal 4,000% increased damage while ignite is applied to a target, and hitting an ignite enemy with a non-channeling fire spell deals ignite damage multiplied by combustion stacks. So that's kind of cool. So you get basically that multiplied by the 100 stacks. So it's a massive buff in that direction. So pretty much what people are using right now is like the vanilla Hydra with like no rune, because the other one doesn't like work properly, I guess, because it's just like a damage over time versus like a hit. But pretty much people are using like explosive blast. I'll give you guys some gameplay of it. It might not be the easiest thing to play. Previously, it was a lot easier to play if you played the Twister build, but there was also the Frozen Orb build, which was like the #1 spot. But rip the Frozen Orb build that you guys are seeing in the gameplay, because that's no longer going to be a viable option. But that's not it. There's more. So there's a small change over here with the Gears of Adrenaline set, which is going to be a buff. So with the 6-piece bonus, Hungering Arrow, it used to say Hungering Arrow pierces a maximum of 2 times while wearing the Gears of Dreadlands, and then our primary skills deal 15,000% increased damage. This is actually a buff and a nerf. They nerfed it pretty hard before, but they're giving us another like 5,000% increased damage. So this will actually help out anyone that was playing anything that was a little bit different, whether you're doing Entangling Shot or if you're doing Bolas. This is going to make it a little bit stronger in that department. Technically any primary skill, but Bolas was only really used for like T16 speed runs and at the end of the day anyways, but it'll still be better. And then on top of that, the 9th series satchel now makes it so Hungering Arrow is guaranteed to pierce and also deals 400 to 600% increased damage, and then Hungering Arrow can only pierce up to 3 times. So it's a change with this. It technically is a buff and a nerf at the same time. Overall, it's definitely going to be a nerf, but again, depending on how, if you're doing like low tier content, it technically is going to be a buff, and it'll be easier to get up to T16 and clear those really fast. But if you're looking to push, it's definitely a nerf. Unfortunately, no change to the Mundanugus right now, which is the previous best Witch Doctor build, and they said that Mundanugus Regalia is overperforming compared to other such. This is changing to Gazing Demise should simplify the gameplay mechanic while reducing its damage output. And then there's also one small change. It says Blackthorn's Jousting Mail over here. replaced one primary minor property with a random elemental damage affix. So it's just going to change something to make it so it's actually going to be better. So it's a little small buff to Blackthorn, so that is quite nice indeed. But anyways, that's going to go ahead and wrap up the patch notes. You guys can tell me down below what you guys think of them. I think overall the changes to the wizard, they're like, okay, it makes it so you actually have to play Firebirds versus like a Talrasha, which I know for some people Talrasha is kind of hard to upkeep all the different skills, but if you just equip them, it's pretty easy for myself personally. But again, we weren't even using the Firebird set. I think the Necro nerf was way too hard. I think that they need to relook at that, because if they keep the same changes, people will be less inclined to even try out the new Rework Rathma set versus them just going, I'm playing Necro, I'm going to go back and play the same build of the Bone Spear that I was playing previously. So I think there should always be an incentive to play the new content, make it at least viable for people to play. But I'll test it out. We'll see if Bone Spear is actually going to be any good at all, but I can tell definitely it is not nearly going to be as good as the Rathma build, because the Rathma build was invulnerability. You would just never take damage. It was just way too powerful, and I thought that they would at least change it so like you weren't invulnerable. Maybe they can relook at that, but all the number changes are just, there's too many nerfs at the end of the day. But those are my thoughts. You guys can let me know yours down below in the comment section below. But thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, drop a like on it, and if you are new here and you want to see more Diablo content, hit subscribe, turn that bell, and you'll definitely see more very soon, as I do plan to give you guys gameplay of the newest update to the Firebirds build, and we'll see if we can mess around with maybe like a Gears of Dreadlands like Bola build as well, because it definitely will be another newer thing to test out. Anyways, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Have a good one, and I'm signing out. Peace.